Welcome to NMH at 1, your lunchtime news and current affairs program. We are glad to take you through the lunch hour with the latest happenings across Namibia and beyond. My name is Glenda Rashipura and I'll be keeping you company for today's broadcast. Now, in the news today, we take a trip to Swakopmund, where Adam Hartman fills us in on the newly established Swakopmund Business Chamber. The Mauritian Foreign Ministry accused the Malian army of crimes against its nationals. Now, from the sports desk, FIFA has made a decision to disqualify Russia from the World Cup qualification. We find out why when we get there, but for now, stick around for your latest news. Welcome back to NMH at 1. Now, in our latest news, earlier today, the Namibia Professional Hunting Association responded to approaches for comment on the country's controversial exports of live elephants to the United Arab Emirates last weekend. Now, the Hunting Association pointed out that the main problem is that it is mainly an emotional debate by people, however well-meaning, who live in detached from nature and far away from any and all direct problems associated with wild elephants. Now, the association further reiterated that it does not wish to interfere or question the Line Ministry's decision-making in matters that are not related to hunting as such, and that it is acutely aware that the elephant's problem is not a problem of what armchair conservationists think should happen with Namibia's elephants, but rather that there are far too many elephants in Namibia for the available habitat. Now, when we come back, we'll take a look at news from across the regions. Do stay with us. Welcome back to NMH at 1. Now we get into our visual news and we start out in Swakopmund. Now, NMH's Adam Hartman spoke to Paul Njambula, who is the chairman of the recently established Swakopmund Business Chamber, about the association's purpose and vision and the benefits membership it has for the local business community.
Mr. Paul Njambula, who's the chairperson of the Swakopmund Business Chamber. Paul, thank you for joining us. The Swakopmund Business Chamber.
Yes.
What exactly is that about?
Okay, so the Swakopmund Business Chamber is actually an association, Section 21, which was founded on the principle of to have a voice for the business community of Swakopmund. Okay. So, like any other association, it was founded because there's a need, and the chamber strive to advocate for the needs of those members.
All right. So when exactly was it established? Okay.
So the chamber was established last year, which means it's 2021. Started ending the year with discussions and different members, and eventually coming back together, and it was fully registered in June 2021.
And members, how many members do you have?
Okay, so the membership has been growing over the last few months. It's taking time, but I think we have now over 70 members.
Wow.
So which is in a short, we still believe in a short time, and we are targeting very soon by May to reach over 100 members. And I mean, if you look at Swakopmund, a city which is having about 3,500 businesses. And then people, the more they see activities and things you are doing, and they associate themselves with what you're doing, the more members will be able to sign up.
All right. So look, I remember we had the NCCI
yes.
Branch in Swakopmund. How is this chamber different to the NCCI?
Well, we see ourselves as a new association or as a new chamber for the Swakopmund to really be the voice of business Swakopmund. So the NCCI is a national body. It has branches around the country. I don't want to go into to details. You have read most of the newspapers articles, what is happening up in the north, the south, around the country. Our view is that associations are founded because there's a need. Now, it's also important that to maintain the membership and to grow that membership is that an association leaders and those working for the associations should be able to listen and to work on those issues of the members. So the same of us, say fast forward if maybe 2-3 years time we're not following the constitution, which is why the principle were founded, we'll find ourselves in a difficult situation. Okay. And just to add to that also, Adam, I think in general people must know that Namibia follow the Anglophone when it comes to chambers or business forums or associations, which means it's an open society. Unlike in France, it's a mandatory. So if you are in the city of Paris or in the city of Lyon, it's a must that when you register the city of Lyon or Paris, you must be registered to the Chamber of Paris or Lyon. Okay. In Namibia, it's by voluntary, meaning members, they have freedom of choice to associate themselves with any association or chamber which feel that they can benefit from it. Because when you're alone, you cannot do so much, but if you're together and unite, you can do so much in a short time.
So obviously the question is, anybody will ask, how can I benefit from such a body? What is the benefit to businesses?
For us as a Swakopmund Business Chamber, our main objective is we aspire to be the largest business organization representing the business community in Swakopmund, and with that is to serve them to be the voice, advocate for issues which has impact or influence on businesses in our town, and at the same time also be part of the organization as a platform, bringing business together for other opportunities of networking, opportunities where the business can grow, capacity building. And at the same time also, it's also very much important, the economy can only grow if businesses are doing well or we're attracting new investment. Part of our role is also to engage with the different stakeholders, both local and external also, to attract investment in our town. Because once investment is coming in our town, or in our region, even for a longer region at large, it means that economic growth for our town, creating more employment, and at the same time also the city of Swakopmund will be enabled.
Paul, thank you for joining us. People, there you have it. Business owners, seize the opportunity. Become part of our local forum, business chamber, the Swakopmund Business Chamber. Go visit their website, go visit their social media pages, and become part of the networking for the economic development, growth, enhancement, evolution of Swakopmund. Paul, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and any more developments, you let us know.
We'll definitely be in touch.
You take care.
Thank you.
And that's it from our visual news from across the regions. Now, when we return, we'll be taking a sneak peek inside Namibia's daily print publications. But first, a quick ad break. Welcome back to NMH at 1. We now take a look at our local newspapers. Now, the Namibian Sun reports on the war of words between SWAPO Party's coordinator in the Oshodon-Juba region, Susan Hikupwa, and the region's secretary for information and mobilization, now Clive Kavenji. Hikupwa has accused Kavenji of floating the party's constitution by not attending to his duties on a full-time basis. Now, the two of them were previously close allies during the run-up to the 2017 regional conference. However, the current level of backstabbing and power. Now, in our next story, the Namibian Sun quotes the finding of a survey by Afrobarometer that only 45% of Namibians have heard of climate change. Among those aware of the issue, 2/3 want the government to take much more immediate actions to limit climate change, even if it's expensive or causes job losses or takes a toll on the economy. Now, around 70% of participants want the government to regulate natural resources more tightly to protect the environment. Now, up next, the Republican confirms that the civil court case against Yandra Dipanar will finally proceed again, following his indication in the High Court yesterday that he has acquired legal representation in the claim of $11 million in damages by the surviving daughter of the Joshko family. Now, during yesterday's court proceedings, statements were examined by another 2 witnesses in the fatal vehicle crash in 2014, in which Dipanar is being held responsible for the death of 6 people. Besides the civil claim for damages, Dipanar also faces 6 charges of murder, as well as negligent and reckless driving. And finally, as Republican reports, the 23-year-old Philip Seidler excelled by winning the Point Break open water swimming races over both 5 kilometers and 2.1 kilometers at the Onap Dam last weekend. His winning times over both distances were about a minute faster than when he won last year in the build-up to his memorable Olympic debut in Tokyo. Seidler himself expressed surprise at his performance last weekend, since he has moved on from being a professional swimmer to having a day job now. Now, up next, under the headline State Avoids Responsibility, Allgemeine Zeitung reports that Shekero Toeya, the head of the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Natural Resources, seemed reluctant yesterday to accept the fact that the Legal Assistance Center is not subject to submitting a land grab compensation formula to the state. Now, the LAC was merely attempting to get Parliament, i.e. the state, to assume its responsibilities in cases where local, regional, or state authorities have ousted owners from their land. Now, Corina van Veek, a lawyer at the LAC, told the newspaper, "It just happens too often that Namibian authorities, including various local councils and other local leaders, simply steal land. The legal situation is clear. These people must be compensated, but after 4 years, the entire state has not set any rules on how such compensation could be calculated." Now, Allgemeine Zeitung puts focus on the testimonial of veteran educators regarding the positive influence of Namibia Media Holdings and its corporate partners' ongoing distribution of educational booklets to close learning gaps for underprivileged children countrywide. Now, the director of Eros Elementary School, Jacobina Hamata, said a general lack of resources was further worsened by the pandemic, which led to an alarming scale of delayed development and a lack of progress in youth education. Now, Hamata said that the first time the team from NMH arrived in her mother-in-law's village, one child remarked that he never knew you could get an exercise book through the newspaper. She added that access to learning materials is usually hampering simply because parents do not have the means to afford them. Now, the Namibian leads with the Competition Commission reportedly investigating the sale of Bank of Namibia's governor, Johannes Gavagap's interest in investment from EOS Capital Namibia. Now, sources allegedly claim that the shares transaction was concluded without the blessing of the state's competition regulator, which is required to approve the transaction in which companies with an income or asset base of more than $15 million are being sold or bought. Now, up next, meanwhile, NAM Water's chief executive, Abraham Nehemiah, says local authorities have now accumulated debt of more than $1 billion to the National Water Corporation. Now, he said debt and vandalism have been some of the biggest challenges faced by the corporation. In a radio interview yesterday, Nehemiah asked the question, if we have more than $1 billion owed to us, how will be available to replace or construct the new infrastructure. Now, in today's lead story in the New Era, focused on the heavy prison sentences handed down to 53-year-old former hostel superintendent Marvin Ngauyopewa, High Court Judge Alfred Zimboleka ordered the convicted rapist of 10 schoolboys to an effective 68 years behind bars and said he could not find no compelling circumstances to deviate from the prescribed sentence. Now, the first of the alleged 32 instances of rape occurred in 2013, and it continued until 2016 when he was arrested. Ngauyopewa denied the rape acts until the end of his trial and said he could not show remorse or apologize for something he didn't do. Now, according to him, all the people who testified during the trial had lied. Now, in the New Era reports on the accusation by the family of the 11-day-old baby girl, Eleanor Graffitas, that the medical staff in the intensive care unit of the Windhoek Central Hospital were negligent and contributed to the death of their baby. Now, the mother, Liana Graffitas, gave birth by emergency cesarean section in early February this year, and the baby was immediately admitted to ICU as she was premature. Now, the mother was discharged 3 days later, but the baby remained in hospital. Now, the exact cause of the baby's death after 11 days is now being disputed, with the family claiming the baby had not been fed regularly. Now, as the front page of Market Watch points out, there is a critical importance to increase the local procurement of food produce in Namibia, a country which heavily depends on imports, which makes it vulnerable to imported inflation. Now, according to the Agricultural Bank of Namibia, the high dependence on food imports remains a concern due to rising external uncertainties, such as geopolitical tension and coupled with spurring energy prices. And that's it for today's newspaper review. When we come back, we'll take a look at what's currently happening in the market with some economic news. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. We now take a look at our economic news stories. In the fourth quarter of 2021, which is the single highest jump in agricultural production cost since 2016. Now, the surge resulted largely from costs associated with fuel, feed, and maintenance and fixed improvements. Now, this is according to the 2021 fourth quarterly review reports by the Namibia Agricultural Union. Now, agricultural debt was 7.140 billion Namibian dollars as at June 2021, showing a reduction of about 8.3%. Overall, most agriculture sectors saw positive returns due to good prices offered in 2021, it added. Now, according to the report, in 2020, international bans due to the COVID-19 pandemic had a major negative impact on the Swakara subsector, leading to it receiving 87.9% less revenue than in 2019. Nevertheless, the production value of 2021 improved by 146.7% compared to 2020. Now, in our next story, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo suspend soda sales in Russia. Now, Coca-Cola Co. and Pepsi said on Tuesday they are suspending sales of their sodas in Russia, becoming the latest high-profile Western consumer brands to curtail operations in regions following Moscow's invasion of Ukraine. Now, Coca-Cola said its business in Russia and Ukraine contributed about 1% to 2% of the company's net operating revenue in 2021. Now, PepsiCo, whose colas were one of the few Western products allowed in the Soviet Union prior to its collapse, said it will continue to sell daily essentials such as milk and other dairy offerings, baby formula, and baby food in Russia. Now, earlier in the day, McDonald's Corp said it would temporarily close all 847 of its restaurants in Russia. Moving on to our next story, Google commits $15.3 million to help small businesses owned by African women. Now, American multinational technology company Google, through its philanthropic arm, Google.org, announced that it will pledge an equivalent of $15.3 million worth of charitable funds to support African female entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. Now, this, according to the tech giant, forms part of a series of new initiatives aimed at supporting women-owned businesses. Now, research shows that 58% of small and medium-sized business entrepreneurs in Africa are women. Despite this, women-run businesses show on average 34% lower profits than those run by their male counterparts. Google has also announced the launch of a campaign called #LookMeUp to help showcase women entrepreneurs and tell their stories. In efforts to further elevate women business owners to develop and sharpen their skills, Google has also dedicated the March cohort of the Hustle Academy, a 3-week-long boot camp to women-owned small and medium businesses. Quite a way to celebrate International Women's Day, which was celebrated yesterday. And that was it for our economic news segment. Let's now take a look at our economic indicators. Now, the Chinese yuan shows a drop in value, while the British pound, euro, and US dollar have increased. MTC share price saw a 10% increase on the stock market, while other stock prices remained the same. No changes in the stock prices of listed establishments, including Nictus Holdings and Trustco Holdings. Now, the local and overall price index, however, continues to decrease. Copper has decreased in value by 0.71%, while that other commodities, as shown, have seen a rise in value. Gold increased by 2.93%. Now, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has urged the Ethiopian government and armed groups to end the violence and abuse in the country. More on this when we return with news from across the continent. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us during your lunch break. Now let's take a look at news around Africa. Now, in our first story, the UN High Commission for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, is urging the Ethiopian government, Tigrayan forces, and other armed groups to end the violence and abuse that are keeping northern Ethiopia in crisis. Now, UN Rights Chief Bachelet expressed alarm Tuesday at the growing human rights and humanitarian crisis in northern Ethiopia. She said the 16-month conflict between Ethiopian government forces and the Tigray People's Liberation Front, or TPLF, has spread into the neighboring regions of Afar and Amhara. This, she said, has increased the number of civilian deaths and casualties and the destruction of civilian property throughout the region. Now, the High Commissioner said no one in this war has clean hands. The comments come as the UN Human Rights Office released new reports on the Tigray conflict, covering the period from November 22nd of last year to February 28th. Now, Bachelet said the office has documented hundreds of killings and injuries of civilians due to multiple airstrikes by the Ethiopian Air Force. At the same time, she said the Tigrayan forces and other armed groups have carried out devastating attacks in Afar and Amhara, resulting in scores of deaths and injuries of hundreds. Now, in our next story, we're in Mali. Mauritania accuses Mali's army of crimes. Now, the Mauritanian Foreign Ministry accused the Malian army of crimes against its nationals on Tuesday. The ministry summoned the Malian ambassador to protest the recurring acts. The move came after Mauritanian civilians disappeared in unclear circumstances at the border region of Abdel Bahru. Now, audio files allegedly recorded by eyewitnesses circulated on social media directly incriminating Mali's army. Now, in January, 7 Mauritanians died in the same region and after an inquiry. Now, however, tensions didn't subside. Dozens of people demonstrated near the presidency in Nouakchott, demanding an end to the disappearances. Since ECOWAS sanctions hit Mali, the transitional authorities had found Mauritania a privileged partner. Now, in our next story, we're in Ethiopia. Kenya readies for Moderna COVID-19 vaccine plant first in Africa. Now, Moderna has signed an agreement with Kenya to set up its manufacturing plant in the country, the first in Africa. Now, the announcement was made Monday in a statement by Health Principal Secretary Susan Moshate. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta said Kenya is pleased to partner with Moderna in the establishment of this mRNA manufacturing facility to help prepare the country and sister states on the continent to respond to future health crises and stave off the next pandemic. Now, Nobar Afian, co-founder and chairman of Moderna, there thanked the government of the Republic of Kenya for their support in bringing an mRNA manufacturing facility to Kenya. Now, in its prophylactic vaccines modality, Moderna's mRNA pipelines includes 28 vaccine programs, including vaccines against respiratory viruses, vaccines against latent viruses, and vaccines against threats to global public health. And that was the latest news from across the continent. Now, more than 2 million refugees fled the assault on the Ukraine so far. We give you the latest development on this when we return with international news. Do stay with us. Now, before we head on over to what's happening in international news, we are still in celebration of women, and here's a video compilation which explores the transformative power of girls' education, where girls are supported through secondary school and into economic independence and leadership positions after school. Let's have a look.
What is the change? What do you want people to say about the power of education through life? Girls face a lot of barriers to go through school. I was a star student. I had the best results in the country possible, straight A's. But what I didn't have was the money and the resources to get me into secondary school.
I have seen how painful it is to be uneducated and how painful it is not to know what you are entitled to, where girls are not allowed to be girls. Girls are not allowed to, own property. Girls are not allowed to say no just because she's a girl.
The transition of young women from school into adulthood is a very difficult one. They are vulnerable to exploitation, exploitative labor and exploitative relationships. So being in the Kama network provides them with a safe space to make this transition from school into adulthood.
I'm one of the first girls that CAMFED started supporting. It was after we had all completed secondary school, and we were together, all 400 of us, for the first time in one room, and we're talking about what it meant to be in school, particularly given that we almost missed that opportunity.
We are showing that when you educate one, you educate many. Our members educate on average 3 other children. They support them with books, with uniforms, they pay their tuition fees, they provide for their food and other supplies that they need in order that they stay in school. I myself was supported through school, and I'm now a lawyer, and I've supported over 22 other children to go to school.
You don't feel alone. You feel that sense of belonging. I was happy to mingle with my fellow CAMFED beneficiaries because I knew that we were sharing the same background.
Right now, CAMFED is in 5 countries. We've supported over 3 million girls, real girls, not numbers, in school.
When we have ensured that every child is in school, we'll see our communities transformed, we will see improvements in health, we will see women taking leadership positions, and we will see improvements in the economies of our communities extending to our countries.
I never dreamed in my whole entire life seeing the mighty New York, the mighty America, but it's something that can be done. Once you are educated, you can travel, you can do anything that you want. You can meet any person around the globe. It starts with education.
I don't just think, I haven't just read that education can transform lives. I have lived it. I've seen it in my own life. I think if we care so much about what we do, we can do anything.
Go far with Paratus. Go further with Paratus Fiber. Paratus, offering high-speed, reliable fiber connectivity, starting from only 599 Namibian dollars per month. Unlimit your lifestyle and visit na.paratus.africa for more information.
Always prepared. Paratus.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. We now take a look at our international news stories. Now, Russia promises silence for Ukrainians to flee battered cities. Now, Ukraine must hold off Russia's attack for the next 7 to 10 days to deny Moscow claiming any sort of victory, said a senior government official, as more than 2 million refugees fled the biggest assault on a European country since World War II. Now, Vadim Danetsenko, advisor to Ukraine's interior minister, said Russia was desperate for at least some kind of victory, citing the cities of Mariupol or the capital Kyiv as the most likely targets. Now, Russia said it will provide humanitarian corridors on Wednesday for people fleeing Kyiv and 4 other Ukrainian cities. The only operating corridor is that from the city of Sumy, which opened on Tuesday. About 5,000 people rode buses out of the northeastern city on Tuesday after Moscow and Kyiv agreed on the corridor, said Sumy regional governor. Now, about 100,000 cars were also able to leave, moving towards the city of Poltava through the corridor, which continues to function today. Now, in our next story, South Korea repatriates North Korea's sailors seized boat after border crossing. Now, South Korea's military said on Wednesday it had sent back all 7 North Korean sailors who were aboard a ship it seized after the vessel crossed into the South's waters a day before. Now, the boat was towed to a South Korean border island before crossing the northern limit line, the de facto sea boundary between the 2 Koreas, according to Seoul's military officials. Now, a North Korean patrol vessel that was tracing the seized ship briefly crossed the NLL but turned back shortly after the South's military broadcast warnings and fired a warning shot. Now, Seoul's defense ministry said it is military-handed the 7 sailors and the seized boat to the North Korean authorities near the NLL around 2 p.m. after the crew asked to return during questioning. Now, in our next story, Guatemala law punishes abortion with prison for up to 25 years. Now, Guatemala's Congress approved on Tuesday a law that punishes abortion with up to 25 years in prison and prohibits same-sex marriages and teachings about sexual diversity in schools. Now proposed by the conservative Viva Party, the law for the protection of life and the family law was unexpectedly approved by a large majority of lawmakers, including allies of President Alejandro Giammattei. Now, the legislation had been on ice since 2018 and still has to be published in the official gazette to come into force. Now, the penalty for an abortion was increased from between 5 to 10 years to 25 years, except when the life of the mother is in danger. Now, activists and some politicians have criticized the law, which was passed on International Women's Day. Now, Guatemala's human rights ombudsman Jordan Rodas said he would challenge it on human rights grounds. Now, moving on to the sports scene, football in Namibia is on hold. We find out what the players have been up to after this commercial break. Do stay with us.
The My NA Property Show provides viewers with the best-in-class property content, from looking for the perfect house to transforming it to the perfect home, with focus on interior designing, transforming your garden into a tranquil haven, to going green and having the funds and security of financing and insurance. The My NA Property Show has it all. Tune in and make your house a home with our monthly My NA Property Show on Wednesday evenings at 6:30 on all the NMH Facebook platforms and our website TV channel 1up2, 1up2.com.
Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. We now take a look at our local sports news. First up, league material players resort to rural football. Now, many former Namibia Premier League NPL football players have resorted to playing federation soccer and local tournaments for the sake of keeping fit. Now, some of the players who are also part of the national team setup says they have no choice but to risk injury at a local tournament, given that football has been on a halt due to lack of sponsorship or infightings. Now, in our next story, Commerce Netball League kicks off this weekend. Now, the Commerce Netball Region League is set to kick off in Windhoek this weekend, with several teams roaring for a successful season. Now, the first match of the season will be between NAST and Wanderers at the Wanderers Sports Field on Friday at 6:30 p.m. on a Court A, while Court B will host a match between NDF Windhoek and Nampol. Now, the rest of the matches will continue on Friday at Rehoboth and Windhoek. The netball region consists of 17 clubs and over 30 teams affiliated to it. Now, the region also boasts 3 professional clubs in the MTC Namibia Netball Premier League. Now, in our next story, corporate urge to help unlock new 800-meter beast. Now, Erongo Region Sports Officer Berthold Karumento is pleading with the business community to assist long-distance rising 800-meter runner David Dem in his quest to compete at events outside Namibia. Now, Namibia are on the verge of producing a global sensation by the name of David Dem, Berthold Karumento says. Now, Dem, who was born in Grootfontein, has been dominating the 800 and 1,005-meter races in the country. Now, moving on to international sports news, South African head coach Pitso Mosimane has signed a 2-year contract extension that will see him remain in Cairo. More on this after the break. Thank you for staying with NMH at 1. We now take a look at our international sports news. Now, as we mentioned before, decisions made on Pitso's future at Ale. Now, Kickoff reports that Pitso Mosimane has put an end to speculation surrounding his future After penning a new 2-year contract with Egyptian giants Al Ahly, reigning African champions Al Ahly have confirmed that the club's South African head coach Pitso Mosimane has signed a 2-year contract extension that will see him remain in Cairo until the end of the 2023 to 2024 season. Now, in our next story, FIFA disqualified Russia from World Cup. Now, FIFA have confirmed that they have disqualified Russia from World Cup qualification. The World Football Organizing Body has taken a firm decision to remove Russia from Europe's World Cup qualifying playoffs, where they were set to take on Poland, whose federation had threatened to boycott the fixture kick-off reports. Now, in our next story, Lewandowski smashes UCL record kickoff. Now, Bayern Munich star Robert Lewandowski once again etched his name into football's history books during his side's emphatic 7-1 win over Red Bull Salzburg in the UEFA Champions League on Tuesday. Now, the Polish striker scored a hat-trick as he hit the 40-goal mark in all competitions for the 7th successive season. Do stay with us for highlights right after the break. Welcome back to NMH at 1. We now take a look at the highlights. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, is urging the Ethiopian government, Tigrayan forces, and other armed groups to end the violence and abuses that are keeping northern Ethiopia in crisis. Now, Ukraine must hold off Russia's attack for the next 7 to 10 days to deny Moscow claiming any sort of victory, said a senior government official, as more than 2 million refugees fled the biggest assault on a European country since World War II. Now, many former Namibia Premier League and PL football players have resorted playing federation soccer and local tournaments for the sake of keeping fit. Some of the players who are also part of the national team set up says they have no choice but to risk an injury at a local government tournament, given that football has been on a halt due to lack of sponsorship and infightings. Now, Pitso Mosimane has put an end to speculation surrounding his future after penning a new 2-year contract with Egyptian giants Al Ahly, reigning African champions. Al Ahly have confirmed that the club's South African head coach Pitso Mosimane has signed a 2-year contract extension that will see him remain in Cairo until the end of 2023 to 2024 season. Now, agriculture inflation jumped from 3.1% in the fourth quarter of 2020 to 10.8% in the fourth quarter of 2021, which is the single highest jump in agricultural production cost since 2016. Now, those have been your highlights. From me, Glenn Rashipura. Do join me again tomorrow, same time, same place. But before that, do have a look at regional review.
Welcome back, viewers. My name is Monique Adams and I am the South correspondent for Namibia Media Holdings. Today we're celebrating World Panic Day. It is the day out of all the days of the year that we can express our emotions that we keep on building inside. It is okay to feel overwhelmed or upset. It does not make you weak. First up in our news segment, on the 1st of March, Nedbank Namibia paid a visit to Keetmanshoop, and this is how it went. Mayor of Keetmanshoop, Honorable MacDonald Hansa, welcomed the delegation of Nedbank Namibia to the stakeholders dinner themed Inspired Engagements at the Birds Mansion Hotel in Keetmanshoop. The MD of Nedbank, Martha Murwarwak, described the event as a meet and greet to thank Nedbank customers for their loyalty. Well, in our next news segment, the NAMRA Commissioner Sam Shivute paid a familiarization visit to the Claras Governor Alita Fredericks. The aim of the visit is to familiarize themselves with business operations in the region and to engage various stakeholders to create a mutual understanding of tax and customs-related matters. They also donated some teaching materials for pre-primary and primary level learners, which will be distributed to rural schools. And on Tuesday, the 8th of March, a truck lost control at the Luderitz in South African roundabout here in Keetmanshoop that was carrying beer. And watch the following video to see what transpired.
Choose your flex package with Paratus today. Sign up for ultra-fast fiber with the convenience of mobile LTE. That's 2 products in 1 bundle. It's new, it's 1 bill, and you can stay connected in more than 1 location.
For more information, visit paratus.africa/NA.
Always prepared. Paratus.
That has brought us to the end of today's news segment. Now we move over to our interview. We get to speak to the oldest woman living in Kois, named Martha Roy, and she turns 103 years old this year on the 28th of October. And this is what she had to say.
Oma naam is Martha, né? Okay, nou goed. Oma Stefana Maria. Oma zijn naam is Martha en haar geboorte van is Van der Bijl, maar haar getrouwde van is Watboy. Oké, oma ze mama ik kijk oma ze school ik kijk oma ze.
School ik kijk ma. Zie dat je kijk pipirin kui na kijk ma.
Oké. Oma zei ze, laat destijds het niet school gegaan in. Laat ze ouders het net bij die bogen gaan blijven bogen op de bas.
En wat een jaar was dat?
Maar gorigi sama.
Ai, tato boti want singa kuna ama sati.
Oma zei goed rarig nog niet voor haar jaren goed vragen. Maar dat was blauw jaren terug zeker. Oh man, agi sama.
Maar saka.
Nou, oma kijk, toy zie je zelf, maar wat je zegt.
Ik toy singa. Toy sa goed maar. Dit maar die bestreek naar as. Tweelingsdam Tiramies.
Oké. Oma zei het groot geworden bij een plaats daar, Keetmanse streek. Die plaats naam is Tweelingsdam. Oké, het is que oma zei nou kago ne 18 kurigaan als que oma zei kurus is niet maar bas is.
Kurus is niet ja dat je is een soort wat dat je soort die je pana in hun na je soort.
Mama ngai.
Natuurlijk sam sai. Ngapa kêu ko. Kugu kaje ngapa huwa na taistiri te ba kaje kanti. Ngapa ja.
Oké. Oma zei dat ze zo 18, 19 jaar was het haar eerste werk begonnen doen daar op Tweelingsdam. By daai boere, hulle se van was swart geweest.
Hannes Swart.
Hannes Swart was hulle se naam geweest. Dis jy mos 'n man gaan kos en ngaba sis.
Kuli patay ke sisi ngaba. Ako patay kam ko iya. Sip ke ti papa ke si ute.
Dis jy mos ngas kauk na daai di.
Si daai ke ngas kauk ka. Ja te kaba ko daai ke ko rao. Da au even smit. Die keremie op de bak hoera, dat wat kabak is in zo.
Sy het vir 'n jaar op Tweelingsdam gewerk, maar toe daar pa vragen gevat en toe sy hier op Evertsmith op Gouw gewerk. Hier so 18 km van Koisa. Maar dit ook net nog is nog so.
Evertsmith die pap. Wat jy sê. Na Evertsmith sien nou kan
Okay, sy het by Evertsmith se pa gewerk op Gouw. Sy het vir Evert wat nou die plaas het en sy suster ou Caroline het sy groot gemaak. Sien ngas kauk as jy mos daai die.
Ngas kauk ka daai ke. Koratsi. Kaba. Ai, dit marito hobo. Sida ke nou nga. Hoera ke hoop ka toe. Hoe kan hoop die koin au.
Trabas kira die groene traba.
Era ke ira hoop ka toe. O daai ke. Ai daai ek het ook op hoe. Na ke sisen. Sida ke ngang hoop dit ook man en sing hoera. Dat wat er sisen ia. Nee ke au. Au wat jy ho.
Amma sy van Gabo wat sy gegaan. Dis nou baie jare terug, sy onthou nou nie die boere se name nie, maar toe sy by ander boere gaan gewerk. En terwyl sy by daai boere werk, het sy haar man ontmoet. Chidi ke ma gore kame oma, chi ma ngai.
Kois ai daai ke kame. Ai.
Kanagas goed kame. Aba ki kanagas die. Okay, haar man het op Kanagas gewerk, maar hulle het hier op Kois kom getrou. Chidi ke sin toe as jy oma se man of never do get it kan Kois of maar do get sis ngas kauk.
Ek meer dan Kois is dit mangata ke kame o daai. Dat daai ke Kois dik aan au kai. Kois o se. Maar dit amabili saka.
Amma se nalat hulle sy nalat met haar man getrou dat sy nie eintlik meer gewerk het. Toe bly hulle hier op Amabili. Dat is die eerste plaas as kyk my storie. Ek wil ook net daar reg sê Kinagas is Amabili nie. So haar man het op Amabili gewerk destyds.
Haar man se volle naam is.
Ammas die opdingings. Ammas.
Jo.
Ammas die opdingings Maria.
Johannes Wetboy te.
Johannes Wetboy. Die ammas is nou maar die guru gaan.
102 jaar.
Ammas nou 102 jaar. Kom vat dit die foto hier dat ek vir julle wys. Hier ammas se foto waar sy 100 jaar oud geraak het in die kerk.
Pastoor Bern.
Daar verjaarsdag daar gevier. En ek moet by sê dis in my leeftyd die eerste mens wat ek ken wat oor die 100 jaar oud is. Sy sê sy voel nie so sleg nie. Dis net wanneer sy loop wat haar bene erg pyn, maar sy loop nog altyd met die kiere.